In this video we're going to see how you get to actually draw a graph, or how you can draw several at a time, or how to then draw some more after you've done that. So you're using the draw or draw new commands, and just to summarize previous discussions, you'll have selected some elements and you'll have selected some results. So operating charge would do, and you've selected some scenarios. And as you go through that process, because there are selections across multiple tabs, the number of implied series on the chart could get quite large. And so at the top, we'll be displaying how many graphs you're going to create, and down here we're going to be displaying how many series there are. But because that's not finished, I'm going to have to show you that in the PowerPoint. So here it is. So basically, above the OK button, we'll tell you the implications of clicking OK, and it is that there would be n graphs to draw. And of course, that will only be if you've checked separate graphs in any one of the tabs. So if you've checked separate graphs for the scenarios, or you've checked separate graphs for the results, if you've got more than one result, or if you've checked separate graphs for the elements, then obviously you'll get multiple graphs. And the number of graphs you're going to draw will be shown here, because that's, if you like, the most important thing to know is how much mess am I going to create, and the answer is it's this many. It doesn't display anything at all if it's just one graph. And as per the previous videos, the separate graphs option is always unchecked by default. Even if you've done multiple graphs in the previous draw, our assumption is that it's always better to opt into it rather than to have to remember to opt out of it, because if you have to remember to opt out of it, you might suddenly get loads of graphs by mistake, which is a pain. So in general, there will only be one graph to draw, and if so, then it won't say anything here. If you check several graphs anywhere, then you'll get several and it'll be displayed here. But assuming it's only one graph, or even if it is multiple graphs, then in general, if you've got things, more than one element, more than one result, more than one scenario, and if you haven't said all of those things to be separate, then in general, you'll get many series per graph, and the number of series per graph will be summarized below the OK and Cancel buttons. It'll tell you how many series per graph as the executive summary, and it will tell you for each of the tabs where you've selected more than one thing not to go on separate graphs, it'll list them here. So again, in general, it won't show you anything there if you're doing one or more graphs with only one series per graph. But if you're doing at least one graph with more than one series per graph, then if there's more than one element, it'll show you two elements or three elements. If it's more than one result, it'll show you here. If it's more than one scenario, it'll show you here. So the idea is that above the OK button and below the OK button, it'll give you a clear summary of what you're going to get when you click OK, just to make sure, to reassure you that or to feed back that you've made the selections you intended to make as you go through. Just to summarize, so the idea is that you've selected some elements, you've selected some results, it could be more than one result, you've selected some scenarios, and if you haven't checked separate graphs anywhere, then in this case it's going to be two elements multiplied by three scenarios, and down here on the right it will be saying two elements, three scenarios, just to make it clear that your graph is going to have that many series. In as much as you don't want to have multiple graphs unless you really mean to have multiple graphs, equally you don't really want to have more than a certain number of series on a graph, because it very quickly becomes hard to read. So, 4, 5, 6, even 8 lines on the graph is just about manageable, but if it was 16 lines, you've probably done something wrong, at least until we talk about slicing later on. So that's the information we're going to present here and here to make it clear to you exactly what's going to happen when you click OK, and to summarize across the different tabs when you can only see one tab at a time. So in terms of what you're actually going to do, you can either click OK to draw the graph, Or before you do that, at any time you can check Show Graph as Table. It's there across all the different tabs, so you can do it wherever you are. So if you want this graph or all the graphs to be a table, then you check this. If any of the predefined graphs say they should be a table, then they will become a table anyway, even if you don't check this. But basically, you check this if you want it to be a table, but either way, you click OK, and then you will get the graph or the table. Down here in the bottom right, there is another button called Draw Another, and actually I'm going to flip back to the PowerPoint just to make it easy for you to see what it does. So in the PowerPoint, the idea is you click OK, and you get your graph, or you get your table, and you're done. If you click Draw Another, then the graph is still drawn, or the table, if you've checked Show as Table, but the dialog remains open so that you can go back and draw some more graphs or tables. And that might be different elements and results but the same scenarios, or it might be the same elements and results but different scenarios. The idea is that your dialog is sitting there with a bunch of selections, and quite often you want to make several charts where there's something in common, and leaving the dialog open, it just makes it that bit easier to go back and change the thing that wants to be different before the next graph. You know, in the training you draw some demand results for services, and then you go back and draw some cost results for resources. And one way to do that here would be to select the service, select the demand, click Draw Another. It'll give you a demand graph, it'll go around, it'll be sitting there, and you can then go and select the resources and the cost results. But if you'd already picked the scenarios you wanted the first time, they'd still be sitting there, and you'd get the same scenarios by default for the next one. In fact, even though it doesn't do this yet, the idea is that even if you've closed the dialog, when you come back to it the next time, it will remember your previous selections. So even if you don't remember to do Draw Another, and you just do OK, you can always go back and do another Draw New, and it'll start from the same selections you made the previous time. So it doesn't make a big difference whichever way you do it. So anyway, so the idea is that in that dialog, there are two ways out. There's OK, which means give me the graph and I'm finished, or there's Draw Another, which means give me the graph, but actually keep the dialog open so I can then draw a succession of different charts without having to go back to the menu to get back to the dialog. That's all we need to say about drawing a graph or several, and then maybe some more. And so we'll stop there.